to Be a Billionaire by Martin Fridson. This one was actually recommended by one of you guys, so I figured I'd give it a go. Some of the recommendations I will probably take way longer to get to than I expect. Heck, it took me 9 months to get to cleaning up your mental mess, for crying out loud. But just writing down the chapter names of this one, I have to admit, this one's pretty exciting. It gives off the vibe of this book is written by a guy who spent however many years studying and maybe even interviewing many billionaires and figuring out what they all have in common, what they like, what the way they think about things, what makes them tick. This guy, I did look, he's not a billionaire, but he did go to Harvard, where many multi-billionaires like Steve Ballmer, Michael Bloomberg, and Ray Dalio went and graduated, whereas Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg dropped out. Just a quick note though before we get started. Who doesn't want to be a billionaire? If you could be a billionaire, would you? Because there are people who say no one in the world should be able to have $1 billion. I get the feeling that some people might say no. I'm sure that anyone who would say no would not bother clicking on this video. I think a lot of the people who would say no, with all the money right in front of them, they would gladly take it and give it away to everyone else who needs it more. Even if you have more money than you need, you can still give it out to other people who are on the other side of things. A lot of these books about becoming a millionaire or billionaire, at the end, they'll actually tell you, especially Dave Ramsey, they'll tell you like the point of this is so you can give away as much of this money as possible. And don't even get me started on this whole multi-billionaire pledge of like, you know, when I die, I'm giving over half my money to charity, that so many people on the Forbes real-time billionaires list are taking part of and have been doing so for several decades now. But please keep an open mind as a result of that. There is a lot of freedom that money can allow you, and if you don't like that amount of freedom for whatever reason and having it, you are literally free to do whatever you want with it. That's one of the coolest things about it. Back to the book, it doesn't seem like How to Be a Billionaire is much of a game to this guy, but we'll see. Is it even good? Is it worth getting? Does it actually tell you how to be a billionaire? What are you gonna get out of it? In this review, I'm gonna do everything I can to answer all those questions and more. I'm gonna go over the chapters, my thoughts on them, what I liked, what I didn't like, things that surprised me, things I learned. I'm also gonna go over some standout quotes, who I recommend this book to, and what books to maybe check out next. Just so you guys know, there are affiliate links in the description, and if you guys buy anything through those links, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam, and I wanna make self-growth normal, because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. This book came out in 2000, well after Think and Grow Rich, The Science of Getting Rich, and The Richest Man in Babylon, and well before Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and many other digital age billionaires. The first chapter begins with a disclaimer about the differences between books read earlier in the lives of today's billionaires and those of the future. You can tell that this guy has gone to Harvard just by the way he writes. It reminds me a lot of Blue Ocean Strategy, which screams and bleeds and leaks Harvard all over the place. But this sort of laid out what you can expect from the remainder of the book. Plus more concept terms like conspiracy and restraint of trade, margin cost, collusion, they're introduced into the mix. Later on in the book, I really didn't hear as much of those, and it became, to me at least, much more accessible. I get the feeling that anything written by a Harvard student or professor on business tends to be a little itchy, I just shaved, tends to be filled to the brim with density as far as technicality. I found it interesting though, although that Forbes at the time listed investments as the primary source of wealth for 7 of the 1 billion or more category, investing in the stock market alone is not going to make you that kind of fortune. It just isn't. People think it is, but it isn't. I'm sure now it's even less likely than when this book came out 23 years ago. Building the world's biggest hotel, expanding a drugstore into a massive chain, and doing what the author calls hostile takeovers and more are much more included as well. Warren Buffett is more like a billionaire because of his corporate activism and of course Berkshire Hathaway. Not just some passive investing and living till he's, 91 years old now? Dude looks good. Doesn't he look good for 1991? This author really likes people like John D. Rockefeller Sr., Warren Buffett, and Carl Icahn. But I found out that one characteristic these people all really have in common is joy in the pursuit of wealth, not just the love of wealth. And I got some serious Blue Ocean Strategy vibes from the next chapter, How Important is Choosing an Industry, talking about being an early adopter and knowing what industry to be a part of and when. Then he introduces us to what's going to be in these strategies. Now, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, my favorite book ever, is known for talking more about thinking like a rich person. And it's a foundational work on how to look at things on your way to riches. This is not about how to become rich. In retrospect, 95 to 99% of this video was pre-written. I'd like to kind of add that, this part wasn't, obviously. It's not really about how to become a billionaire. It's kind of about like how many billionaires became billionaires. These people reject the safe but sure path. They hedge their bets. They thrive on deals. There was a lot of emphasis in the beginning on a guy named H.L. Hunt, who seemed like a mini Rockefeller. He was the start of what many people for a long time called the wealthiest family in Dallas, but I think that emphasis is due to his love for risk. Hunt really loved gambling and poker, horse racing, and oil drilling. I was certainly expecting a focus out of this book on doing what others don't do, but for some stupid reason, innovation and early adoption I just didn't really consider as much. You know, it's sort of an afterthought. Not to the author. Sam Walton is one of the main characters of the discounting business because Walmart executed the business of that better than any of their competitors. It required literally no originality, and he completely thrived on copying other people's ideas. I loved the storytelling in this book. One story that stood out to me was Ross Perot's, an extremely analytical guy who went to the Navy and then he went to selling for IBM, and then he founded his own data processing service company, a major interest of which was eventually purchased by General Motors in 1984 for $2.4 billion. And that's 1984 money. Imagine how much that would be now. These people have balls. Seriously. Might I add, I never would have gotten this from Sam Walton's autobiography, Made in America. It's an amazing book. Just about everything he did was ideas from other people. The one thing that really made Walmart stand out, however, that doesn't really seem like this was an idea from other people, was that they made their employees involved in just about every possible aspect of the whole business as they possibly could. The next chapter, Dominate Your Market. Bill Gates is a badass. He made some serious balls to the walls moves over the years. Gates indicated that if Apple didn't give up the project, he would suspend Apple's license to use the competing Microsoft language on its popular Apple II computer. Gates insisted that Apple withdraw what was said an Apple software engineer. He held a gun to our head. At certain points, although not as many as I would hope for in a book like this with this one's title, the author will stop the story and say that the reason this massive risk actually worked out is not what you think it is, but rather X or Y, which I really like that he did that all throughout the book. They discussed ways around antitrust laws and cases in history and how it really requires serious tenacity and confidence. Then you learn about acquisitions and massive stock buyouts. Here's a very vivid example of the author's writing that stood out to me from the chapter Buy Low. The area was devoid of vegetation and wildlife. The territory had certain characteristics that suggested it might have become a buffer zone because no country wanted it. Summer temperatures as high as 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity frequently reaching 100% along the coast. Persian Gulf waters tempting to swimmers, but infested with sharks and stinging jellyfish. Sand dunes filled with giant scorpions and vipers. Dust storms lasting several days. Hailstorms that turned the desert green overnight. How would that turn the desert green overnight? What? Affecting massive swarms of locusts. As you guys may be able to guess at this point, billionaire oil tycoon in the chapter, J. Paul Getty, took advantage of this area that was allegedly desolate, I guess, entirely. The following chapter, Thrive on Deals, talked about Kurt Kerkorian and Carl Icahn's negotiation and deal-making habits. A lot of it sounded like treating everything like a deal waiting to happen. The author talked about negotiating almost like boxing or fencing or something. Then you learn about the three essential aspects of management that billionaires adhere to. And these are organization, recruitment, and motivation. Organization was about giving your company the stamp of your invariably strong personality. Wonderfully laid out examples of this are given of Sam Walton and John D. Rockefeller Sr. Recruitment was putting extraordinary effort into evaluating new hires. Perot asked people stuff like, what's the greatest accomplishment you've ever made happen? He met with the wives of the candidates, exploring whether they would tolerate the demands he would put on their husbands. And in the early days of the company, no one at all would be hired without being interviewed by every single employee. Isn't that insane? Microsoft actually does stuff like this. These people hire by talent and not need, and so they are literally always looking for excellent candidates. Perot, by the way, that might sound kind of intense, but this is the type of employer who will insistently pay for your son's heart surgery, like life or death. You want to talk about motivation? When Perot says to drive to Alaska, this employee would do it blindly without asking why, and his wife would be right behind him packing a suitcase to come with. I found it clever after how the author explains true stories, the benefits of investing in political influence, and then talking about how easy it is while attending political fundraisers. Something I love in general about this book is how often the author revisits the stories, styles, tactics, and more of this select group of multi-billionaires, so you can truly get a feel of how they all thought of things, leaving you to your own judgment as to how you think of things on your way to wealth. About resisting unions, Rockefeller called unions frauds engineered by irresponsible workers. He said that at first, it sounds noble. These people come up with a name and some principles, but sooner or later, their real objective just kind of shows itself to get as much possible for the least amount of work. This is coming from a guy who, by the way, at times will willingly pay his workers more than the going wage, whatever that was at the time. And lastly, the chapter Your Turn. Okay, so these people, what they did was they focused on very high growth industries, and they applied all 9 strategies in this book. Fridson wrapped up the rest of the thing beautifully like a holiday present, making sure to note sacrifices and disclosures that I guess presumably he didn't feel gave enough exposure to throughout the book. I don't know. Overall, I really liked this book a lot. I found it fascinating, and it wasn't as complex as I thought it was going to be. I don't think it's exactly about how to become a billionaire. If it is, it's not exactly step by step. It's more like certain financial habits and principles and rules that people live by rather stringently, becoming billionaires partially but directly as a result. In a way, it's also kind of about how many billionaires became billionaires. It wasn't exactly about the step-by-steps of it. When I think of how to be a billionaire, that's what I think of. I think of step-by-step. Maybe the whole be versus become totally slipped my mind. But the biggest takeaway I probably got from this was the advice of falling in love with the pursuit of money rather than just money. Quotes. In a funny way, studying 20th century philosophy primes your mind for takeovers. For him, the mere possession of wealth never replaced the thrill of the pursuit. If you sincerely want to be super rich, you cannot let yourself be deterred by the unavoidable facts that change upsets people. I just kept making obscene demands and they just kept agreeing to them. Bill Gates is the leader of the parade because he sees where the parade is going and gets in front of it. Don't be too proud to take advantage of undeserved good fortune. Frugality is a fair fortune. Your standard of living doesn't change after the first million. I don't want to become possessed by my possessions. When a reporter remarked that his office contained no computers, Buffett replied, I am the computer. Rockefeller always sees a little further than the rest of us, and then he sees around the corner. Britain's most celebrated entrepreneur violates almost every convention in the business world except making money. With money in your pocket, you are wise, you are handsome, and you sing well too. Direction 1. If you want to be a billionaire or understand how billionaires think about or look at things in life, check this book out. Direction 2. If you like this book, check out How to Build a $1 Billion App by George Berkowski. That's a really good one too. How to Be a Billionaire by Mark Fridson. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.